This is the warning. 60 years ago today, in a very different speech, on a colder day, standing outside, the 43-year-old president of the United States, John Kennedy, said this.
So, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
There are millions of Americans who are stunned right now. They are terrified, heartbroken, angry, saddened. And today, the 47th President of the United States uttered the most chilling words that have ever been spoken by an American leader. I was saved by God to make America great. It is delusional. It is messianic. These are the words of a Jim Jones wannabe, not an American president. This speech was a threat to the American way of life. Dressed up as a commitment to law and order, Donald Trump has promised to use a law written in 1798 to deploy the American military into America's cities to wage war. He talked about peace in his speech, but it was a war speech. Make no doubt about that. Donald Trump talked about manifest destiny deliberately. He talked about an expansionist America. What country is it, Donald, that you propose to invade beyond Panama? And that was the point of the speech in the end. There were words, of course, and there were promises and commitments, none of which will come true. What will be remembered from this speech are the faces of the people smiling in celebration. The owner of the Washington Post, next to the Princess Sanchez. Elon Musk, the CEO of Google, and Mark Zuckerberg, the titans of America's technological power, the leaders of the most powerful companies in the history of the world, all gathered together, not to celebrate democracy, not because they share a commitment to justice or to the American people, but out of fear and entitlement and opportunity, because they realize what is gathered in that room are their fellow takers. It is the greatest gathering of takers the American people have ever seen. And a season is upon us, unlike any that has ever been before in the United States. The delusional Trump says he comes to office facing challenges that are greater than what Lincoln faced, or Washington, or John Adams, or Franklin Roosevelt. It is absurd. Who will be the first American to die, to be buried under an American flag for Trump's invasion of Panama? Or, per usual, is it just bluster or bullshit? It might be a good time to reread the book, The Guns of August, because history teaches us that there is an awful momentum to the type of words that Donald Trump spoke today. He talked about William McKinley. William McKinley was prodded by unethical journalists into waging war in Cuba, manufactured by William Randolph Hearst. Back in the day, fake news was called yellow journalism. It's alive and well today. It will be hard to know what is true and know what is not, but that has always been the case. You must use your judgment, your eyes, and your ears to appreciate the profound disconnect between a man that claims God's grace, yet who desecrates his faith. What the American people saw today was a disaster at the very first instance of its unfolding. What Donald Trump is promising is not democracy, it's feudalism. He is king, surrounded by his lords, and all the rest of us are to be their serfs. And then they will tell us that each of us is a hero in the service of a great cause to a great nation that benefits just a few. It's cynical, it won't work, it's obvious, and it will fall apart. But it cannot fall apart until and unless there is an opposition with a conviction and an instinct to celebrate this country and argue for better by reaching for our values and communicating there's a better way. It will become obvious that this is not a golden age descending upon us, but a season of unrequited corruption, a time of chaos, mayhem, vanity, and venality. Nobody with any common sense will think, after hearing this, anything other than, my God, what have we done? But we have done it. Trump's mandate is thin. He won election with 49.9% of the vote. And even in an inaugural address, his ego is so brittle, so thin, he can't stop talking about it, can't stop grasping for himself. And so Donald Trump has laid a trap in this inaugural speech. The American people don't want the interest group politics, and they don't want to live in the woketopia. They have rejected it. And Donald Trump has chummed the waters. He has done what he has needed to do to make sure that the most extreme element of the Democratic Party is the first to the line in opposition, so that they are opposing the most popular parts of his agenda while he gets a free hand to carry out the most unpopular ones. The game never gets old, at least for Trump, who constantly wins at this. You can't fix stupid, as they say, and I worry about that. This is a moment that will require a fierceness in the opposition. It requires political leaders in this country to go out and to say to the Canadian people, to the Danish people, to the Panamanian people, to our allies all over the world, we will not let American power be turned against you in the name of Donald Trump's sick and twisted vision about our expansion. The United States of America is not Putin's Russia. We will not seek conquest. The American people will not tolerate it. And that so many stood and cheered under the Capitol Rotunda that was invaded and desecrated by the mob Trump sent there just 4 short years ago is a sign of the national sickness that Trump's inaugural address perfectly represented. And yet, there is a cure. It is the idea that we are better than this. We are. Soon, Donald Trump will set about doing the things that he has said he will do. He makes it all seem easy with his breezy confidences and his assertions. But all of them are based on a delusion that when something is dropped, it rises, as opposed to falling. And what Donald Trump is dropping are our values, our history, our legacy. He told a story about America today that was mythological. It's nice to hear myth. Sometimes it can even be inspiring. But through the myth, it's important to hear the threat. And that threat was loud and clear today. Millions of Americans won't be cheering for this for very long. Mark my words on that. The future, we don't know what it will bring, but I'm going to make a prediction. 4 years from today, should this speech be played back, people will either laugh out loud or cry out loud. And that will all depend on how deep the pit is that we find ourselves in after the tragedy that's coming fully arrives. Let's not forget the lesson. It has been a most painful one on a sad day. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.